Hello! Today, I will be providing a defense of theism. More specifically, I will be addressing the following argument. 1. If all evils bring about greater goods, then we should not attempt to prevent evil. 2. We should attempt to prevent evil. 3. Therefore, not all evils bring about greater goods. This conclusion can be problematic for theists, because many theodicies entail that all evils do bring about greater goods. I think the basic idea is pretty intuitive. If theists believe all evils bring about greater goods, it seems a bit inconsistent when they try to stop evil. What I'm going to be arguing in this video is that premise 1 is false. Even if all evils bring about greater goods, it is still rational to prevent evil whenever possible. My argument relies on Molinism, so if you've never heard of that before, you have a bit of homework to do before this video will make sense. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into the argument. Firstly, I'm going to distinguish between two kinds of probability, which for our purposes we can call natural probabilities and derived probabilities. Speaking loosely, the natural probability of an event is based solely on the natures or causal powers or what have you of created things. In contrast, derived probabilities take into account the fact that there is a God who not only knows the natural probabilities of all events, but also the outcomes of these events, and he decided to create our world based on that knowledge. I'll illustrate the difference with an example. Let's say we have a truly random fair dice with the unique property that if it lands on a 6, it generates a cupcake, but if it lands on anything else, the worst thing possible happens. Literally, the worst thing that could conceivably happen. All existing agents undergo infinite suffering for an infinite duration. In fact, an infinity of new agents are created just to undergo more suffering. It's just the worst. Now, let's say we're in a world where this dice is actually being rolled at this very moment. The natural probability that the dice will generate a cupcake is 1 in 6. We get that answer just from analyzing the properties of the dice. However, if we're actually in this universe, then we know that God decided to create this universe while knowing the outcome of the dice in advance. And God wouldn't have created this universe if the worst thing possible happened. So there's a derived probability of 100% that the dice will land on 6. So when asking for the probability of this event, there are two answers. Coolio. Now this brings up a question. Rational decision-making involves evaluating the probability that our actions will have a favorable outcome. But if there are these two kinds of probabilities, which should we use in our decision-making? As it turns out, we should base our decisions on natural probabilities. To illustrate why, let's imagine God before creation deciding whether or not to actualize a certain feasible world. If that sentence doesn't make sense, you haven't done your homework yet. Now, this particular feasible world starts off pretty good. For the first couple thousand years, all agents make amazing decisions of their own free will. Up to that point, this is the best candidate for the feasible world that God will end up actualizing. But then, an agent who is perfectly rational and likes cupcakes, which we'll call Jim, is given the magic dice from earlier and has the option to roll it. If Jim bases his reasoning on natural probabilities, he'll think, while I do enjoy cupcakes, it's not worth a 5 in 6 chance of the worst thing possible. And he won't roll the dice, and the world will stay awesome. However, if he uses derived probabilities, he'll think, oh, God created this world, so the worst thing possible definitely will not happen. So there's a 100% chance this dice will land on a 6. It's basically a free cupcake generator with 0 risk. So I'll roll the dice. This leads to a 5 in 6 chance that Jim completely ruins this feasible world. God hasn't actually created Jim's world yet, and he'll probably have to find some other feasible world to actualize instead. This is a bit of a simplified example, but you can see the point. Agents that base their reasoning off of derived probabilities engage in unnecessarily risky behavior, which makes their feasible worlds worse off on average. To explain this point a bit further, note that possible worlds are basically big lists of facts that describe a way reality could be. Since the only way for a world to exist is if God actualizes it, all possible worlds contain the fact God actualized this world. But decision-making with derived probabilities, essentially interprets that fact as God's stamp of approval. But God didn't put a stamp of approval on every possible world. That's silly, and it leads to agents being too optimistic about the outcomes of events, which leads to them engaging in unnecessarily risky behavior. Thus, the best way to reason about a situation, the best way to improve your feasible world, is to reason with natural probabilities instead. Okay, now that we've established that we should use natural probabilities in our decision-making, there's only one more step. Show that there is a low natural probability of evils resulting in greater goods. Ironically, atheists have already helped out here when trying to strengthen the problem of evil, so I won't spend too much time on this point. Take an animal that dies alone in a forest fire with no one around. If we were to just analyze the properties of this event in isolation, it seems improbable that this somehow results in a greater good. And since there is a low natural probability that evils result in greater goods, we should try to stop those evils. But this doesn't mean that we should believe evils are gratuitous. God has so many feasible worlds available to him that we would still expect him to end up actualizing a world where all evils do lead to greater goods, even if such worlds are rare. And since we live in the actual world, we can conclude that there is a 100% chance that all evils lead to greater good, but this is a derived probability, and so it shouldn't affect our decision-making. It's a bit counterintuitive, but it's completely consistent. If you found out that magic dice did exist, you shouldn't roll it. But you should also believe that if it does get rolled, then it will land on a 6 because God won't allow other outcomes. Similarly, if you see some evil, you should try to stop it. But you should also believe that if evil does occur, it will lead to greater goods. That's how you could have your favorite theodicy while still approving of saving babies from burning buildings. That's the end of my argument. Before I go, a quick note. I haven't posted anything for a while, and some of you may be wondering why. Well, it's nothing that interesting. I have a full-time job, I'm also a full-time student, I'm also newly married, and I'm working on getting a house built. I'm going to work on producing videos whenever I can, but my schedule is just a little tight at this point in my life. So thank you to all my viewers who continue to watch my videos, even when the YouTube algorithm is mad at me for failing to post 12 videos a week. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.